But then who does estimation in the context of agile? So for example, if you want to paint a house, as we discussed before, if you want to paint your house, who is the best person to give an estimate? Is it the boss of that particular company who doesn't have anything to do with painting, or is it the accountant, or is it you? None of us. None of these people are best placed. Who is the best person? The person who is actually doing the work, the painter, is the best person to actually give you an estimate which is closer to the reality. What you have got an estimate, the idea is perhaps it's good to have an estimate, but then your estimate might be way off tangentially in terms of the reality or the actual that is being done on ground. So in the same context, with the IT, the development team should estimate. There's actually a saying that I keep repeating every time within the agile context. Even on Thursday, I'm going to repeat the same. Development team should estimate, they should commit, and they should deliver. That's the whole mantra of agile. The reason why agile development has been successful is because the team estimates, the team commits, and the team delivers. Nobody else. It's not your boss, it's not the client, it's not somebody else, it's not the subject matter expert. Everything is actually being done and being owned and delivered by the team. The team owns it, and that's why agile is successful, period. It's not successful because they're delivering something quick or anything. It's because when you have got the sense of ownership in terms of what you're doing, you take more and more responsibility, and you actually feel that freedom. You've got that responsibility on your shoulders, so you feel more committed and more and sincere towards your work. That's the whole objective of agile. It's about team empowerment. So in the context of agile, it's the development team that does the estimate. So I'm not talking only developers. I'm talking about, for example, as a team, the analysts, developers, designers, architects, all of them obviously would be involved in the estimation exercise. But then when it really comes to this, it's not being dictated by the project manager, by the scrum master. It's not being told by the customer. The customer might give a rough timeline saying that I want this feature, the e-commerce or the shopping cart feature by, let's say, September 2021. Or they say, I want to go to the market by April 2021. So they give a rough timeline, but they cannot dictate in terms of the how much time or what is the size of this particular piece of work. So it's the development team, it's us who should do that. So user stories in the sprint backlog need to be estimated. We've had a look at it already. The tasks, the requirement changes, the change requests, the defects, all of them, everything need to be kind of estimated. It cannot be left for choice. When we talk about user story points, it's not just the user stories that get the points and the estimates. You leave out the rest. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that you need to estimate every single item in the backlog that needs to be. For example, in your sprint backlog of about 10 items, that's why we call it as items and not stories. Backlog is not all about stories. This is another important thing. We'll talk about each of these in the Agile course in detail. A backlog consists of, let's say, 10 items. We call it as items. Each item could be a story. It could be a change request from the previous story. It could be a defect that is logged by the customer or by the testing team. Or it could be a new requirement, for example. All of these, it could be a task as well. It could be a task to create a table in a database. It could be a task to fix a piece of code. It could be a task to add a user. All of these could be the tasks. So when we talk about 10 items in the backlog, you need to estimate all of the items, how much effort it would take to complete those 10 items. And that's why we call them as sizing. That's important. You're not talking about the days. You're not talking about one person might be taking 10 days to complete it, whereas the other person might take 1 day, depending on the experience. That's why what we do is we do the sizing. It doesn't matter. So again, going back to the example of the painting the house, you don't ask like, how much time do you have? Do you want me to finish off in 2 days? No. The first and foremost thing that the painter would ask is the size of the house and what does it take? Similarly, the first thing that you would like to ask in terms of building an e-commerce website is the number of pages. What is the functionality you would need? The number of pages, the kind of functionality you would need, for example, could be building a shopping cart, building a catalog, how many products do you have? And then the payment processing, who does that? Is it your responsibility or somebody else? Yeah. And then how do you actually kind of accommodate all of these in the context of the mobile application? So mobile application, or is it only website? Does it have to be a responsive website as well? So all these things, which kind of operating system should it be used? Is it for iOS or is it for Android if it's a mobile application? If it's a web application, should it be hosted on a Linux environment or should it be? So all these questions would actually give you a fair idea in terms of how you would like to approach, where you would like to host this. So similar to the point about the painting the house, the fundamental aspect is the size of the piece of work. It's not the effort, it's not the cost, nothing else. All of those would follow from the size. So if you ask me, the way I would approach anything in this in estimation is, first thing, estimate the size. Next, estimate the effort that is involved in carrying out given the size. So size is the fundamental. After size and effort, you look at the number of resources that you have. It could be the number of people, number of tools, applications. For example, is it only hosted on the Linux environment? Don't bother about mobile application. That's fine. Need not be responsive. Or if they say, I won't have this. So that's also resources. Should it be scalable to 5 servers? Should be network balanced? Should be load balanced in terms of the network? So all these things need to be factored in. These are the resources. There's the soft and the hard resources. And then once you have the size, the effort, and the number of resources, you would then be able to come up with a schedule, whatever you call it as, the duration, the number of days, the number of months, the number of years, number of hours it would take to carry out the task. And then finally, given these 4, the size, the effort, the number of resources, and the schedule, you'll be able to arrive at the cost. Because you've got an idea now with the resources, it could be a simple case of number of resources times multiplied by the resources, for example, by each rate of the resource. And then you would arrive at the particular cost of the resource, add to the cost of, for example, variable costs and the fixed costs, for example, the hosting, for example, Google Cloud or Amazon AWS or whatever. They have a fixed cost. It doesn't matter in terms of how you would like to host. There's a fixed component and then there is a variable component. So you actually add all of these components and finally arrive at the resource cost. And that's the total cost of development or total cost of ownership. So I would still reiterate, whatever you're estimating this whole world, whether it is IT or non-IT, start with the size as a fundamental measure. Size up, look at what is the quantum of work involved in the first place, then the effort, then the resources, then schedule, then finally the cost. So that's how it would really work. It's not the other way around.